This episode is sponsored by Opera GX. I'm Kerry Stagmer, and we are the Blacksmiths of Baltimore Knife and Sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite things and fantastic objects you've never seen before. This is Man-at-Arms, Reforged.
Strength to honor!
With the release of Gladiator 2 and Those Are About to Die, we figured that Gladius were actually very relevant. Tony and I already build Gladius for stage combat, but they're a bit different from a historical piece. This is a steel one that we make here at Baltimore Knife, which is a little different than a historical piece, but it does work if they're using it on stage. This is a pretty standard item for us at Baltimore Knife. Almost always have it available. You can check on the website for that. And Tony is making them primarily in aluminum.
Yeah, this is a copy of Tommy Trojan's sword that I make for the USC Marching Band, and I've made them since 1993. I make my Gladius, or most of my weapons, out of 70-75 aircraft aluminum as opposed to making out of steel.
So today on Man-at-Arms, what we're going to be building is a more historical version of a Gladius. Let's take a closer look at that now.
Let the games begin!
But first, let's hear about today's sponsor, Opera GX. On Man-at-Arms Reforged, boring isn't in our vocabulary. So why should my web browser be any different? That's why I ditched the other lame browsers and switched to Opera GX. With thousands of customizable themes, sounds, and visuals, Opera GX lets me easily bring the adventure from the forge to my online experience. One of Opera GX's unique features is their GX mods, which allow you to customize anything, and I mean anything. We're talking wallpapers, background music, keyboard sounds, customized splash screens, UI fonts and icons, and much more. Best of all, it's extremely easy to set up. Simply go to the GX store, choose your favorite mod, hit install, and that's it. You can even mix and match multiple mods to create a truly unique experience. It doesn't get any better than this. But that's only the tip of what Opera GX offers. With a built-in video pop-out and ad blocker feature, you can stay immersed in your favorite worlds without any interruptions. And with their quick import tool, exporting settings like browser history and bookmarks from your current browser to Opera GX has never been easier. And I'll make it even easier for you to download. Simply use my link to begin your Opera GX adventure. It's that easy. So ditch the other boring browsers and download Opera GX today. For this sword, we're going to be working with two different materials: wrought iron, which has little or no carbon, and 80 CRV, which is a very high carbon steel used in blade making. We're going to basically sandwich the high carbon steel with the iron on the outsides. The iron will give us the texture and surface when we do the etching at the end, and leave us a beautiful blade. Tony now goes to the forge with this billet to bring it up over 2,000 degrees so that we can get a forge weld. As Tony and Gary work this material, they'll add a little bit of powder, basically flux, borax, to the outside. This is to both help the forge weld and clean up the surfaces. Now that Tony has this welded up, Gary takes this out into bar form, and from there he'll be able to begin forging the sword blade.
Hi guys, I'm Matt. You can find my socials at The Ancient Armory on all platforms. I am a shield maker, and I specialize in shield reconstruction as well as more general historical research. Now, the Romans had 3 gladius types by the mid-1st century. The first of which was the leaf-bladed Mainz type, of which this stage combat sword is based on. The second type was going to be the narrower-waisted Fulham type gladius, which was found in Britain. Now, it will eventually, both of these, be replaced by the flat-sided Pompeii gladius. This gladius was the easiest to turn out for mass amounts of soldiers and would become the dominant gladius type by the early 2nd century. The major takeaway with the Roman gladius is that it is a very close-range, mass infantry fighting blade. It's not going to be as long as the Celtic or German war swords at the time, but it was to be used in tandem with the Roman scutum, i.e. the shield, in order to deny enemy infantry their ability to swing. So you get in close enough with the blade, the pommel, if necessary, to strike with. You can do a lot of damage very quickly when you have a mass infantry body with equipment like this. So as we said earlier, you would not see this blade without the trusty Roman scutum at its side. So for those of you whose Roman Empire is the actual Roman Empire, stay tuned. We might be showing you guys a Roman shield in the future.
We use a lot of different woods here at Baltimore Knife, but one of the things that tends to remain the same is that we use stabilized materials. Wood that has had the moisture removed from it and some form of fixative, either an epoxy resin or something of that nature, that is then drawn into the capillaries of the wood itself, making it very strong. And that allows us to take woods that would normally be too soft for this, like burls and spalts, and we can still use those materials to make swords. Some of the wood that we use for this is going to be non-traditional, but we really do love olive, so that's something that we'll be adding into the garden pommel.
So the mounts on this Gladius are relatively simple and mostly made out of wood. There is some brass involved. We're going to be using some olive wood that we have, which is absolutely beautiful. Now this is stabilized wood, so it is impregnated basically with a plastic where we remove moisture from it. But I'm going to go ahead and cut this up and we'll get to sanding to get it to the right form.
As I finish shaping up the pommel, let's check back in with Gary in the forge. With careful blows of the power hammer and his hand hammer, Gary now begins to get the final form for this, starting by forming the tip, and then he'll be able to create both the tang and that slightly leaf shape or wasp-waisted shape that you see in this blade. That's what we call a Fulham pattern. There are several different Gladius patterns, but this one has that gentle leaf shape.
Now that Gary's finished forming the Gladius, we're now going to reprofile and bring it to all its pointy goodness. We're going to get to grinding on this thing.
Back to the forge with this blade, Gary now watches it, looking for that even 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, and then quenches into Parks 50 heat treating oil.
Now that we've got the Gladius back from heat treating, you can see all three layers that we have. We have the rod on either side, and then we have the 80 CRV in the middle. The 80 CRV is actually the only metal that actually stays hard throughout the grinding process. So I actually have to keep my grind centered for that to be our sharp edge and our stout stabbing point.
Forged, tempered, etched to reveal the beautiful iron pattern, we now bring you the sword that conquered the known world. The Roman Gladius. Click here to subscribe, or click here to subscribe to Baltimore Knife and Sword. Click the video to see more here on the All Me channel.